Kachonach ikea yoxatini, shtakat Johan. Yewa adat you tuchotank, adesh tutultu ye yag. Ban kanins, yak yektawe, korkonekuk kikuch, dakte. Shukwa aya kachkastegenach. Ya kesh itwashku yak dati di aya. Acho kastegenach. Sina yak. Chayikugenk. Korkoneko a dakte yakuch. Ayanach yasadk. Yewe ha yejene yak. Yachana. Gwash yati. Kadulyats kagachtu ak. Naski a achtuas kagachtu ak yachana. Aka awe yikakawus daka sa ituas gushukwa. Aka a iti asandik ak. Su adat stigachtu we konesh tudiltu wukuch. Ya yidat ko a hausene chayukatangi kone adat yejitune. Ye awa achtuati stikat Johan. Gunchish kdenkai ako. Gaha yukatangi stu. Achtu yeke. Ade yejine. Khunach yeke. Yati nashe ayagachtu at. Wooch. Achoy wan kanin sagtu asaku yin kachaniki. Yigo ayakwan. Shetzina ya yitu yeti. Tadata tinachsa yeti. Kagachtu ak. Yijite gachtu ti. Ye awa. Wan kanins just atchakut. Ja adusa achi has outlatu. Has to data ya yutachwatank. Wasak ausaku aya has to in. Yejine. Kakwan ish. Shakshane. Keuchne. Kalkaw. Jukatin. Shagun. Tlein shkate. Ya has to yukatangi ach. Shantut. Yuts ach. Kaachtu yikeachtu asagu Johansu. Has to yukatangi sa achi. Atisa achi. Yekakwati. Gunalchish akati sa achi. What was I talking about? What kinds of things was I talking about? I'll recap it, but I just want to see. What are we catching? What are we grabbing onto?
I heard Chayu Kugank or Cha Kugank or some variation of that, and it's familiar. I think I forget what it is. I want to say something like from time to time, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
You said Wonka means a couple times.
Wonka means, yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes. You said has to do something about there. I didn't catch that part. And then you said someone has strength. I think you said Fitzine. There was a longer segment or a whole phrase that I recognized, but I'm having a hard time remembering what it was. But that's some of what I was hearing.
Okay. Cheese. We'll still do the recap. So hold on. But there were a couple of things that were said that I think are good to. Well, both of these weren't said, but we should go over these. Anybody know what these two things are? Yegugenk and Chayegugenk?
A little bit. Something like a little bit. Isn't it something like that?
Which one is a little bit?
Yegugenk.
And what about Yegugenk?
Small.
It is small. And this is for non-living things. There's some verbs that are just going to be like this. Oh, is it a living thing? Different verb. Okay. But just remember, yekugenk and chayekugenk are not the same thing, but they come from the same thing, right? So a little bit or it is small are different things. What about I know I said this. Qonik qiquq. Something like that. Qonik qiquq yaqiqt. Yeah, you're gonna
Is
start
this
going.
what we've started sometime? Or?
You're gonna start going in a boat. So what I was saying is like one qanins qonik qiquq yaqiqt. Sometimes if you're gonna start going in a boat, in a motorboat, you're gonna start pretty slow. You don't want to throw a wake around, right? And so this is the way that we've been studying. We're working slowly, right? Even though we've done a lot, we've covered a lot. But once you start to get out into the open water, start to open her up a little bit. That's what we're going to try to do tonight. So I kind of have three things that I want to try and cover this evening, and we'll see how we do. And maybe you can pick which one you want, but maybe not. Maybe I'll pick. I don't know. So a lot of things get inspired. Like I get inspired by just being around the language all the time, because then people start thinking of things, and I start thinking, I wonder if other people are thinking of this. I've been thinking of this. And some of these things, like when you look at all the language documentation, it's just wonderful, the stuff that's out there. But sometimes it's taken a little bit of work to figure out like the exact difference between some of these things. And so one of them for me is smiling and laughing. So we're going to do a little lesson on laughing, and we're going to sneak in some grammar stuff in there for you. Including beginning to really see the verb for its components. The other thing I thought we'd do is do some tricky nouns, which are a bunch of nouns that sound very similar, and they're very, just reminds me of like a conversation. And I don't even know how the conversation really went, but it was something like this. I was saying something, something, something in Schengen, and I said, kuch. They said, did you say kuch? I thought you said kuch. Or was it kuch? It's like, no, it's kuch. Oh wait, I mean kuch, right? And so we'll look at some of that stuff, because there is. This one has 4. I don't know if I have all of them in there. Okay, what is kuch?
Right,
Rice?
Lily?
Or that lily with the wild
Lily?
right? Yep. What is kuch?
Is that the box?
No.
Okay, no, that's way off. Okay.
Well, yeah, we'll get to box too, because yeah, okay, we'll put box in here too.
Okay.
Kuch is box. Kuch is a martin.
Oh.
Oh yeah, we gotta up our wild rodent skills. Kuch, nukshian, da, tagedi, chatakach, nusk. We're all like one family. Okay, let's see. Can I get this one? Let's see. I think it's that, but I'm having doubts about the beginning. So everybody just practice all the other ones while I look this up real fast. Okay, nailed it. Kuch. What is this one?
Is that the rings on the hat?
No, but we'll get to that. So this is pitch from a tree, or bubble gum, or lead, which I don't know why they have the same apparently name.
Maybe because you melt them down.
Say it again.
Maybe it's because you have to melt them down.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Sheesh.
I thought that was yate. Maybe that's a similar.
8. Take.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
So take.
I had it backwards.
So now there we've got
Tate.
oh, let me check.
That's what it is. Tate. That's what it is. Tate.
Go through these spells where I
Sap or a pitch, a sap scab or a torch or something like that.
mm-hmm.
I thought it was based off of pitch and sap.
Yes, so okay, there it is. So we'll come back to Tate, but we gotta do Kuch first. This might be the last one. Oh wait, hold on. Before we do that, oops, sorry. No, we gotta do Kook.
Oh my goodness.
Basement.
Basement. Or a house pit. Okay. One left, Kuch.
Not like Yana 8.
Yes, this is the flower. It's the Yana 8 flower.
I thought they were just synonyms.
Or what?
I thought they were just synonyms. That's an interesting distinction.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it's different from the plant, like stock itself?
Yeah, so Yana 8, and then this is the name of the flower on the Yana 8.
A wild celery?
And what's really, okay,
And like stinging?
so then before we do Tate, which we will, there's this thing called Kuch Yi Yagu. What does that look like, and what might that be? We've got to up our game. What's that?
Petal?
Petal.
Like flower?
Oh, yeah, you are on, well, no, but it is a plant part. How's that? Oh, I see a hand up. What's up?
Standing. Standing.
Huh? Oh, sorry. I was just wondering for the, which one is it? Dang. May you please scroll up a little bit? I didn't write it down. Here we go. Yes. For kuch, rice or lily, is that specifically a chocolate lily or is that like a lily in general?
Yes, only the chocolate lily.
Oh, okay. Cheesh.
We don't have any name, and that it's really interesting too. There's a lot of flowers around here. We don't have a whole lot of names for them. And so, and maybe there were. I wouldn't be surprised if there were, and there's a bunch of them that got lost. But what we held on to were the ones that we use on a regular basis. Okay, Wasa Danakid.
Is that one that you like? Do we plan making names for flowers, especially native flowers?
This one does have a name, and this seems to be the name that's also given to the rings on the top of a hat, which seems to be like the Yana 8 flower around the head, which is a pretty cool name. Oh, and this is also a pretty cool name. I tried to name a human being this, but I was turned down because it's a difficult name. I might still succeed. I'll take it back to the naming commission. Kuch. There's 3 parts. What do you think that, well, there's 4 parts, sorry. The first one is Kuch. What might the second thing be?
Sometimes mean like inside of something.
Yi is inside a building or below something. This
Is it
one's probably below.
Is it stem?
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit, sorry.
Sorry, is it stem?
Them?
Stem, like the stem of the flower.
That is very close. And this is specific to this thing. So we're going to Yana 8 school today.
Oh, is it those little stringy things?
Not quite. What is this last? There's two parts left. 2 parts. Oh, we might also do possessive suffixes tonight. We'll see. I'm gonna try and I'm like packing. It's like when you're packing for a trip. Like I could get it in the suitcase. That's my philosophy for this evening.
Does this refer to the stem being used in the house or on the windows or doorways?
Now, and it's not quite on the stem. So the word I'm looking for here is right there.
Oh,
Suffix. Now what do you see?
under the
Yana 8 flower. Below.
boat?
It's like below. It's below what? The word that just came before it. So below the flower,
The boat?
there's a canoe.
It's like a stalk.
So if you look, there's a part of the Yana 8. Let's see, maybe I could find it. Hold on. I require a visual.
Yana 8 school.
What's it called?
Wanted
The
to name
canoe
somebody
on-
the boat under the flower.
Isn't that a great name? Come on.
The boat under the flower.
So that's the part that where the separate stems that each flower is attached to, were they joined to the stem? Is that
Okay.
Oh, those weird little leafy things.
I'd love it when you're done if you could talk a little bit about how you because I thought yak had like an accent on it, and that you when you condense it, it turns into something sort of different. It looks like.
Oh my goodness.
See this little thing right here? This is a
Hey.
You're gonna have to wait until the springtime because I can't seem to find a good picture of it. In the springtime, when these things are flowering on the 8th, you look at this little thing here. I don't know what it's called. It's like a sheath to that new sort of little branchy thing that comes out. And if you look at it, it looks like the front bottom part of a canoe.
Wow.
What are you planning on staying? Because we have to clean up this room and reset it for tomorrow.
Oh yeah. I mean, however you like.
Okay, so what was that other question now?
Oh, I was just asking when you condense it, like yak, I thought had an accent, like a high tone, and when you condense it down, it loses its. I was just hoping you could talk a little bit about
Yeah, so yak is a low tone word. And so, but we will talk about this suffix well, I think we gotta do it tonight because now this little part of the plant is requesting it of us. Okay, so here's the big question for you folks. Would you like to do possessive suffixes or do some verb stuff?
Oh, that's a tough word.
Okay, verb stuff. I heard verb stuff first, but we will come back to the possessive suffix, and this thing will make sense. You will learn how to spot this thing. So when you see yagu, you're like, oh yeah, that's the possessive form of a boat or a canoe. Okay, goodness sheesh. So we will be talking about rules of the language. Okay, so everybody take a nice deep breath.
What did you say though? The talk you started with. Did you give us the translation?
Okay, I did. Okay. I said I was really proud of the way you all are working.
You said, ooh, a gut too. I remember that.
I did?
I think there was a gut in there.
I gotta stop waiting so
Ooh,
long.
a gut.
Translate.
I also thought you said to a sigu a couple of times, which is like I would like
Yeah,
something.
I think I want us to cover 3 things. I think I did translate that part. And basically, when we're in a boat, we're going to start going a little bit faster. I might have said a couple other things. Yeah, we'll go back. We'll have to check the tape because I forget now. Okay. Gunchish. So we're going to talk about how rules within the language work. Every now and then we're going to cover some of this stuff. Don't panic. Because a lot of times this is the process. We're like, okay, here's how it works. And it's all these tables and charts. And we're starting to use codes for the language that's very hard to understand anyways. But don't worry, there is logic behind all of these systems, a lot of different people working on this kind of stuff. And then once you see it in practice, it's actually not that hard. Like a language usually finds the easiest way to do the thing it does to communicate. But sometimes when you have to describe that to people, it's very difficult. It'd be like if you had to call someone on the phone and tell them how to ride a bicycle. Like it would be very difficult to do, right? Because you kind of know, how to do some of these things, but then like to show someone how to do it, it takes a little bit. And like with language, we don't always think about all those intricate little parts that are in there. But we're gonna make some changes here. Instead of diminutive, we're gonna say small. And instead of plural, we're gonna say small plural, right? So I'm gonna try and like get some of the linguistic language out of here. And then when we say relational, that is the same thing as saying possessive. I like to say relational though, because you'll see it's not always about ownership. Okay. So we're going to talk about nouns and how they work in Tlingit. Always ask questions. Jump right in with a question or thought if you have it, and we will get to examples at the end. And I will see how well you can predict it. And after this, you should be able to put this suffix on anything, any noun especially. And we'll talk about verbs. Verbs and suffixes a little bit different. Some of them, it has some of the same ones, which is really interesting. Okay, here we go. So a noun in Tlingit, it's not a person, place, or thing. A noun is the name of something. When I asked an elder, I was like, what are we going to say for noun? He said, asayi. I was like, its name? It's like, yeah. It's like, great. If you're learning nouns, you're learning the names of things. What's this called? What's that called? What's that called? What's that called? But there are.
Did you say atsai? Asai.
Asai. Its name. Atsai would be something's name. Okay. So, there are different types of nouns. And generally speaking, there is what I would consider like the OG noun, right? These are usually one-syllable words that don't mean anything. They are simply the name of that thing. Yeich, chak, hoots, cake. Right? There's no other interpretation than just saying that's what that thing is called. A theory that I believe in is that these are some of the oldest things that were here when we got here. Like, oh, these things are here. Although some things, like, I think it's called shechdak. That's a two-syllable name. And that's a mammoth. So then you have what we call compound nouns. So compound nouns means that these are multiple nouns put together with a set of rules. Generally, the rules are most things will end up going short and low, except for the last thing. It won't change. So this is something that's pretty common. It's not all the time. Some things will resist that change. They say, I can't change. People won't know what I am. But this is something that happens, and when you put these things together, then you could see here you have wood, inside, worm, and this relational suffix. So ʼatudli.átk is a long and complicated name, but if you see those three parts, gun, to, then it becomes easier to remember. Because like, oh yeah, it's that worm inside the wood, right? Because then that helps you sort of assemble and continue to build your vocabulary with some of these longer names. And the longer names are always interesting. There's always stuff to sort of dive into. And then ʼatudli.átk is the name we came up with for nerd. People were asking for what, because they're like super into studying and stuff. They call themselves the nerds with a Z. So it was in Hawaii, and I said, I was hanging out with Larry Kimura, who was like the coolest person. I was like, Larry, what are you guys calling nerd? And he said we don't have a name for it, but we'll call them punepuke, which is a bookworm. I was like, oh, we could do the same thing in Tlingit, right? Okay, so those are and then if you look in the dictionary that I'm working on, you'll see it says compound noun. And then it usually breaks the pieces down for you, right? Then there's what we call a relational noun. And a relational noun means it needs to belong to another noun. These are mostly body parts and kinship terms. But there's a couple others too. Like we'll get to those later. But this means you don't have to have a possessive or the relational suffix on there. And for kinship terms, you usually you kind of never do. There's only one kinship term, I think, that has a relational suffix. Anybody know what it is? And after tonight, you'll be able to see what it is. It's yeti. And we know that there's a suffix on there, because what's the plural of yeti?
Yetki.
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 So there's your two suffixes on there, right? So a suffix means it's a little thing that you could put on the end, right? Like ing in English or ed. Like we'll talk about what a suffix is, okay? And then you have what we call a verbal noun, which means this comes from a verb. And you will learn how to spot these too. Like when we say hakusti, that comes from a verb, right? The verb is kudzati. The noun form of that verb is kusti. The relational or possessed form is kusti. And you are going to learn all of the rules that make kusti kusti. It follows every rule that it's supposed to. You do have some rule violators. It just happens. Tlingit has a whole bunch of them. Like, I am the exception. I do what I want. Like, okay. All right. Any questions about this? Okay. Oh, let me keep the chat open. Sorry. Sheesh. Okay. So let's talk about how suffixes work in English. And some of you might have seen this before. So if I wanted to pluralize these, how am I going to pluralize this first one?
Add an S.
Add an S, right? So there it is. What am I going to do for this second one?
Same thing.
Same thing. What am I going to do for this third one?
SES.
Is it SES? So this is something I don't fully understand. I feel like this is, you ever see, they talk about like the Bernstein Bears or whatever those bears are, and some people swear like it's AIN, and some people, and then it's always EIN. It kind of always has been. What is that thing called? Like the
Mandela effect.
Mandela effect, right? I have that with, I feel like buses used to be spelled with two S's. Is that an option? Anyways.
Yes, buses used to be spelled with two S's. This is an older variant of the word. And I would argue that the only way to spell buses that you pronounced buses should be SES. Otherwise, this should be pronounced like buses.
Right, like a fuse, right? Okay. So regardless, so we could say buses, whatever. But okay, so are these three? So these are three different these are three different suffixes, right? And they do the same thing. Because what is the sound of this first, like, not how, because English doesn't always care. English is like, I don't care what it sounds like, it's how you spell it. Put a K in front of it and a GH in the middle. I don't care. That's night, right? So English has its own thing, right? And we've learned how to spell in English. So we can learn how to do all this stuff in Tlingit. right? There's nothing new, nothing unusual. Every language has its own set of rules. Now we're going to start internalizing these rules. So that's an S sound, right? Cats. That's an S sound, right? What kind of sound does the second one make? It's a Z sound, right? And what kind of sound does the last one make? Yeah, so an E-Z, right? If I was in Canada, I'd say E-Z, right? Why? Why are there these three different ways to do it? Is it random? Because you know, right? Because you don't say, look at those cats.
Has to do with the ending sound.
Yeah.
So it's just,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's easier to make certain sounds depending on what letter is before.
And what do they have in common? What's the thing? What's the rule? There's a rule here.
Has to do with like being like, you know, like how much.
Is it that the
Oh, you froze a little bit. Okay. We're in the right neighborhood, right? It is the ending. What's a T and S have in common, and what's a G and a Z have in common?
An S unless it has an S already.
Okay, so yeah, so it's an so you get an S when it's unvoiced ending. You get a Z when it's a voiced ending. If it ends with some sort of sibilant, some sort of S type of sound, S or a Z, then you got to throw an EZ on it, right? So these are the rules of English. So you could sort of put these things in an order, right? You say, okay, to make the English plural or possessive, you add an S. Unless your vocal cords are on, then it's a Z. And what this tells you is that the S and the Z are the same sound. They're the same thing, right? Because if you just sort of put your fingers on your sa, and you go go back and forth between an S and a Z, in your mouth that's the exact same sound. You just add the vocal cords. That is the only difference between those. And this is important because Tlingit's going to be like, yeah, we got that too. But we got like 7 of them, homie, because that's how we roll, right? Which is all fine. But when you speak English, you don't have to think about this stuff, right? It's like, no, yadi, that has a sibilant ending. So you gotta go E, right? But sometimes we'll just correct kids when they're learning, but people just figure this stuff out. And usually if you correct it, you're just sort of doing the thing. You just say the thing back to them without necessarily explaining the rules, right? Like I learned this in college, and then I ended up using this to teach Tlingit. But I don't think anybody ever taught me this, you know, that there was those were different sounds. They worked on the spelling. That's what I remember. But it was chalk when I was learning all this stuff. Okay, questions about that? Every language has a whole bunch of different rules. But it's when you start teaching it to people that already know a language that sometimes you gotta examine this stuff, okay? So we got a noun. Asayi, right? It's name. This whole slideshow will be available. The whole thing will be available to you. Use it for whatever you want. There's also a chapter in Hausane Chayukatangi, which is called Modifying Nouns. And you should have read up to that chapter, which means tonight's a good time to read that chapter, or tomorrow. So, languages have adjectives. What does an adjective do?
it describes a noun?
Yeah, right? So it describes that noun, right? In English, I can't remember, there's you could put a whole bunch of things in English adjectives, right? You can have a whole bunch of them, but they have to go in this specific order, right? Like it has to be the big red dog. It can't be the red big dog, because that just sounds, sometimes I'll say things, I'm like, oops, I got to switch those. But again, like someone has documented this stuff. You can go find what the order of these things are. But you have like these little slots that appear. And then this thing goes in that one, this thing goes in that one. With Lingi, you can only have, I think, one adjective. And the thing is, like, they can pop up before or after. So when we say pre, we're talking about before. When we say post, we're talking about after. And we're going to use this stuff. Like, we're going to say it's an adjective, it's one of the pre-adjectives, it's one of the post-adjectives. We'll say it's a prefix, and then switches to suffix. We'll also say preverb and postverb. So the pre and the post, or the pre and the suffix, those are talking about like before or after. When we say before, first thing you say, first thing you hear, first thing you write, going left to right. Post would be after, okay? When we get to verbs, it is important to think about prefix, suffix, preverb, postverb. The difference is the prefix is written onto the verb itself. The preverb is a separate word coming before it that you can't remove without changing the meaning. Okay? So how do these work in Tlingit? Everybody say douche, douche. So we can have one before, we can have one after. There's a list of them. I'll also put up a list of known adjectives and adverbs. Right? I think they're handy to have, right? Okay, so one of the things, if you could talk about a female cat, you would say sheech douche. Sheech douche. I was going over this one time and someone said, we don't talk about that in Tlingit. We don't use these words in Tlingit. And like, they can have an opinion about that, but if we were hunting, I could say sheech ziskowe. Or don't shoot it. It's a female moose, right? This one is just for animals, though, right? You could say shawat the grandmother, ka but you can also say qadush. So ka is an adjective as well. It means male. Okay, so we also throw one on the other side. Douche Shan.
Douche Sean.
Douche Shan.
Douche Sean.
It's an old cat. I guess I should have made it gray hair. This is just aging well. It's a well-aging cat, right? So but you just got to remember which ones go where, right? So here's a list of different adjectives, right? This is your starter pack of adjectives, right? Like when you start getting into Pokemon or whatever the thing is, magic cards, right? You get your starter pack, right? So pre and post. So that means when we write these in the dictionary, you get a long dash right here. Whichever side the dash is on, that tells you where it goes in relation to the noun. There's a name, ʼakeish. It's a shukach adi name, good father, right? A thermos is called kasayeyi gucha because it's strange. It just keeps things warm. Right? So we'll just say these. We don't have to add a noun. You could do that, practice that later if you want to. Ake.
Okay.
Ake.
Okay.
Kasayeyi.
Kasiyeyi.
Kasayeyi. Ka. Ka. Pustin. Pustin. Cheech. Cheech.
Each.
Ease. Suck. Sean. Sean. Tlein,
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 Wooch,
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 Yi,
Yi,
Yi.
Yi.
Okay. Okay. Any questions about those?
Yeah. What if I wanted to say, like, if I wanted to say that it was like a giant old female cat, does it matter, like, what I just say, Kostin, Cheech, Douche, Sean? Like, do you just stack them, or does the order change if you're using multiple modifiers?
I think you can only use one. And then it's got to switch to verbs after that. So you'd say, Hustin, douche, would shun. The monstrous cat is old. So I think Tlingit would prefer that you just break it into different components after that. Because in English you can have like 5 or I don't know. I think you can have like 12 of them. Now you could go look it up if you want to. But yeah, I think Tlingit you can only have one.
Would it also be acceptable to sort of break it into 2 different sentences where you were just like, it was a big female cat, she was old, and
And if you say Kustin, like it's the size of a house. So yeah, like Clifford, like Kustin cake, Kanyachiti, right? So you have to have 2 different sentences or clauses. Yaudine, what's up?
So a phrase I've heard that means alcohol is kasayeyihin.
Yep.
Is there another name for alcohol that I have not heard yet?
Now.
Now.
Naaw. Which comes from, anybody know? It goes through 2 different changes.
I think Kingy Steve said bilge water from the inside of a boat.
Oh, interesting. Well, I think now comes from lam in Haida. And lam comes from rum in English.
Oh, that's great.
Rum to lam to now. Which would make sense for coastal Tlingit, because a L sound, la, 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 which Haida has, becomes an N sound in Tlingit. So if you ever want to make something into a Tlingish word, change the L to an N, change the W to an M, or an M to a W. And I know this because this is in my list of things, because there's a clan house called New Hit. Very cool name. What is New Hit?
Fort house, fort building?
Fort house, right? So there's a fort house. And I might have heard someone somewhere accidentally call it Now Hit. I kept my composure because we were standing in, and then someone came up to afterwards and said, "Where's the whiskey house?" I was like, dang it, just try not to laugh, right? But these things happen. They happen all the time. Kasayeye Qanch is also a strange tobacco, so Kasayeye. But I do think you might be able to double up some of these because this, and we'll talk about this later, this is actually a verb that's been changed into an adjective, which you can do with state verbs, which is basically, okay, since we're going to learn this suffix, we'll get right into the more than you needed to know category. What's that little thing, the star? It's like the more you know. The Tlingit one is like a comet crashing to the earth. It's like more than you needed to know, but it's okay. So to change something into an adjective, you add this same suffix that we're going to learn, the relational suffix, but it's always low. That's all there is to it. And I'll just leave it at that. Okay. Anything else before we move on? Okay, we'll get through these suffixes and we will take a break.
Can I ask one question? Yeah, that good right at the top there. Okay. Is that the part? Is that related into ke kwa ke?
Yes, it comes the same verb root as yuck-a. And you could say ak-eh as an adjective. And you can also say yuck-a-yi as a verbal adjective. So you do have two different ways to say that one.
Oh, okay.
Sheesh. So now let's talk about suffixes, right? So those are adjectives. Tlingit doesn't have a whole bunch of them, right? There's quite a few, I guess, but it doesn't seem like there's maybe as many. No. So these are the most common suffixes, right? And some of them, you have these ones that are exactly the same. You just got to spot which one it is. Okay. So the first one is from, out of, or since that time, which is most commonly dach, but sometimes it'll contract to just the tx. Like that's why you can say qudach or qutch, because that qutch is just a contraction of qudach. And rarely it can contract to just the underlying x. Like for example, you could say kadach from off of it, or you could say kach, either way. Okay. But there's not too many that will full on contract to this underlying x. Usually you have dach or t underline x.
Long low a ah is a contraction of a dach, right?
Yes, off of it. So that's one of them. So kach, yach, ach. Those are your three that tend to contract that I know of. Off of it, off the surface of it, off the face of it. Okay. Okay. So the opposite of dach is day, towards it. It could mean until, and it could mean in the manner of, but mostly like these are the same suffixes used for time. So I could say yadaq khat sati. I'm a young man, which I am not, but I could say if I want to. But I could say yadaq khat sati yidaq. From the time I was a young man, right? And you'll see stuff like this, right? Next one is through, and we're going to do a whole different chapter on these things when it comes to direction. We're going to practice all of these. This is just your starter pack again. It's like, here's your starter pack, and here's your other starter pack, and your other starter pack, right? So don't worry, these are here. We will, and just like when we were sort of crashing some of the verbs the other day, go into the stories and just start looking for them. You will spot them all over the place as your eyes continue to sparkle open with this new information. So nach is through or along. Okay. These next ones, I should just put a line. I like make this line real thick. So the ones below this line, these are the 4 different ways to say at. So you can say it's located somewhere with these 4 different suffixes. Okay, and we're going to talk about them. It kind of depends on 2 things. Are you using a verb? Right? I guess maybe, hold on, let me change the order a little bit. Every time I do this stuff, I gotta make changes now and then. Okay. So there. So under this thick black line, these are all talking about being at someplace. Okay? This one, w or is at, but this is usually used in verbless phrases. Right? Gusu, wedu, yadu, neshu, skunu, awu. Right? There's a bunch of different ways you can use this. And it needs to attach to something, and it means at that place. Yadu, wedu, heidu, you do, right? should not be used with a verb. They are verbing here. They are here doing this verb. Now you got to switch it to one of these other ones below it, okay? It is probably the least common of them because it's really, but it's also, if you're just saying like, where are my keys? Waidu. Nadak kawu on the table. But the answer is usually going to be the or the w is going to be in there as well. The next three, now we're using verbs. So that's the first question. Like, are we using a verb or not? No verb, you can use w. That's fine. But if you're going to use a verb, you're going to have to pick one of these three. And now the difference becomes, like, how did it get there? What's it doing? Right? So the T is most commonly used for it has arrived there. Recently arrived, and then you're going to end up with cut or yet or stuff like that. This one, we saw this one a lot when we learned our introduction, or like where I'm at. So that is marking at a place. Usually I think of it as resting, residing, staying somewhere. This is also used as a very common time marker. In the wintertime, in the summertime, on Wednesday, so it marks time as well. This one is it keeps coming back or it's moving around at a spot. Okay. So I could say hit yich yaneshich kutin Tlein. Tutke. There was a mouse running around in my house. Well, it was actually in the crawl space. It was so big, I don't want to think about maybe it's not even a mouse. But it was in the crawl space, so I left it alone. I was going to bring the cat, but I was like, that might be a fair fight. Protect the kitties. Okay, any questions about these? Okay, and we'll come back to those. I just want you to know these are suffixes you can put on a noun. You will see them.
Can you then say like Alice hit ye yeti?
Yes, you would probably use ye. Alice hit ye yeti. I am inside Alice's house. Because some things like to have like buildings and houses, it's good to say like inside of it. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break because we have a packed agenda. Come back in 5 minutes and we'll put these, we're going to put some of these things on a noun. So we're going to switch to a different type of suffix. Okay. Okay, so we had a question on the break about Halloween. The name that I have heard is ʼatudli.átk. There's 3 different ways at least to say day. Pick your way. Yucky, yuggy, yuggy. But this is, like we just talked about, making compound nouns, right? So we end up with this thing that we often call the head word. And that means the head word is the one that does not contract. But you see, ʼatudli becomes ʼatudli. So if you're hearing it contracted, that means you would write it as a single word. It's a compound noun. And I think, so this, so ʼatudli, I think using the word witch is a little bit misleading, just like using the word shaman is a little bit misleading, just because those are saturated words in English, right? But you did have these things, generally speaking, in icht and ʼatudli. Both of them could communicate with the supernatural world. They could communicate with each other over vast distances. They could use spiritual energy and knowledge and power to affect the natural world, right? Which is, humans kind of live between the natural world and the supernatural world in Tlein. The ʼatudli uses these knowledge, and these powers, and these energies to help people. Healing, finding people. Sometimes, it's not always straight helping people, right? Because that could be a ʼatudli with these people you're fighting with, and that ʼatudli is causing harm to your people. But, you know, they're generally trying to do stuff for their community, is really what an ʼatudli is. ʼatudli has the ability to to communicate with spirits, to do all this other stuff, but they use this stuff specifically to hurt people. We have lots of stories about people like this who have existed and who probably still exist today. They're using the bad medicine on people. So that is the word that we use, and it can generally extend out to the concept of a witch, which is kind of cartooned through the holiday of Halloween. But, so ʼatudli, and this also has this relational suffix that we're going to be talking about. Pops up right there. You're going to see it. Yagu, yagi, right? A whole bunch of places that you're going to see this, and you're going to learn exactly how this thing functions. And there are a couple, you know, so there is tsiki kawu, which is kind of a ghost. There is also khagi or khagu, which is skeleton. Ornate is kind of a alien or a monster. And nuks is candy or sweets. Okay. So this one is a witch. So that's the name for Halloween. It's ʼatudli.
What is the ʼatudli part?
Okay, yes, thank you. So ʼatudli is a complicated word. I think generally we translate this as a master of something. So you'll see different names. Let's see. Let's just hop in the dictionary. Oh, I didn't do teish either. Dang it. Just remember. Okay. Oh, hold on. Okay. So if we go into the dictionary and we just search for ʼatudli. ʼatudli. That's a word for a seine fisher. Let's see. ʼatudli, carpenter, a master of making things. But it's not always like just a straight, like, you are really good at this thing, right? Sometimes it gets more complicated than that. ʼatudli, mayor. So it could also mean the boss, right? The master or the boss, right? Dana ʼatudli, a rich person. It's also jitidana ka. And I don't see anything there. Oops. ʼatudli, that one's complicated. It's a whole long paragraph because it doesn't mean a clan leader. I think the best definition for it today is a clan spokesperson or a house spokesperson. Some of this stuff does get a little bit distorted. Kakde kadakwe ʼatudli. ʼatudli was a boss, like a yejane ʼatudli would be your boss.
Would that be like a principal?
Yeah, Schoon
Maybe this one?
ʼatudli would be a good one for a principal. ʼatudli, person who sleeps too much. But now, right, so now we've got a little bit of a different interpretation, right? Oh, that's using it a little bit differently. Another place that it uses this differently is now ʼatudli, alcoholic, right? So then it's not, so sometimes in some of these constructions, the thing is bossing you now. But that's getting philosophical, but it's generally the boss or the master of something. And so Oh, and then I gotta, teich, I forgot to do teich. So teich, the origin of this word is what you call pitchwood, right? So this is what they call, I think in the interior, it's called pitchwood or pitchy wood. What that means is like it's usually on a tree, you've got sun-baked, dried pitch. So it's hardened and it is really good for starting fires, right? So it's a really good fire starter, and that's why it's also the word for a torch. Okay, back to business. So we're going to learn the suffix, right? So here we go. So you got a prefix and a suffix, right? One on the front, one on the end, attached to the word, right? Like, so here's an English word, safe. If you want to use a prefix, you can say unsafe. If you want to use a suffix, you can say safely. You can also say unsafely, right? So they modify the meaning, right? What Shlingit, it's always interesting to look at like sort of where you put things. With nouns, you're usually going to be putting things at the end. We don't deal with a whole lot of prefixes when it comes to nouns. When it comes to verbs, we've saved all of our prefixes for the verbs because the verb is mostly prefixes and occasional suffixes, okay? So now, we're going to put some suffixes on some nouns. And these are different than the ones we just looked at, right, with those time and direction and stuff. So let's start by just sort of saying the names for these things. Hastusag, hit, douche, sushk, cake, hook, do you know the English names for all of these things? Oh, we're back to rodent school. Back to rodent school, okay. What is sushk in English?
Looks like a prairie dog to me, but
We don't really have prairie
But a
dogs.
marmot?
It's not a marmot that when it's ah.
Oh, is it one of those prairie? Oh, it's not a prairie dog. You said that.
It is locally called a groundhog
Marmot?
or a gopher.
Isn't that
It is also called, and they're not here, I'll give you all a pass. If you go to Carcrossel, you will see them. An Arctic ground squirrel. Locally, people call them gophers. They do live in the ground. They do stand that quite a bit, especially on the side of the road. Freaks me out.
There are gophers in Juneau?
No.
Oh, I was like,
You gotta go north of Shukwe. But
marmots are related to gophers, though.
yeah, so this is all the same family. So you've got Tsach, Tsushk, Nusk, Nukshiyan, Kuch, and like we would know the differences between these things. So when you saw it, you'd be like, oh, Nukshiyan. Like right away, you would just see it. Oh, Kuch. And we also know about these things. And Tsach is the marmot. And Tsushk. Very valuable, like Tsushk Dugu Kudats. Ooh, that's a big time clothing right there. And then there's also Tsushkhan, which is in English, what's that called? Anybody know Tsushkhan? It's a place name. Very important place in Shinget. It's where a lot of the medicine people would become stronger. They go fast on this mountain. In English, I think it's called Mount Fairweather. And that translates to ground squirrel land. Okay, now we got the ground squirrel. These are our three sets of suffixes. Okay? We're going to make them small. We're going to make them plural. Then we're going to make them little plurals. Khisani or kusani. These are the three that we're going to start with. Okay, we're going to put these onto every one of those nouns that we just looked at. Okay? Before we do, let's talk about plural. So in English, you must use a plural suffix if there's more than one, right? You're not supposed to say hey, look at those 3 dog over there, right? But in Tlingit, that's absolutely fine. Tlingit does not require the plural just because there's more than one. The time that it usually, like I'd say, naskkeit chasatin, I see 3 dogs. But I would not pluralize that kate. You usually use this if you need to let people know that there's definitely a lot, more than we can count, or it's important that there's more than one, right? And so just keep it, you'll start to see it around, but it's not, that's just how Tlingit works, right? Okay. Here we go. Here they are. Once again, hit. Go ahead. Cake. Cake. Suck. Cook. Cooked is my favorite one to put a suffix on, because then it gets extra crazy. Then I'll be like, let's do 3 consonants in a row. So we got house, dog, ground squirrel, swan, rock. So if we want to have a little one, like you want to have a little dog like a Pomeranian. Oh, sorry, little house. Hitk.
It,
Hitk. Hitk. Sashk. Tlingit will occasionally hit you with 2 Ks in a row. It's just gonna be like, you gotta deal with that. This is how it is. Sometimes in verbs, sometimes in nouns, excuse me. One of my favorite words in Tlingit, just because it's like, you get 1 vowel and 1, 2, 3, 4 difficult consonants. I think they're difficult. Take. Take. What just happened here? Something different happened.
Lengthened.
Vowel lengthened and got low. This will happen. If you have a word that ends with a short high vowel, when you put a suffix on it, it will push it long and low. This is something that Tlingit does. It's okay. That's why when we started talking about vowels, we say there's 4 vowels, and each of them has 4 variations. That means they can move back and forth. And they will. Not all the time, but they will.
Is that just a noun that ends with a short high vowel or any word?
They will do it to a verb too. Okay. So now we're going to have little ones. Now we have a bunch, right? Houses. Cage. Cage. Sushk. I like this one more than that one, just because it seems a little. It's just so extra. Hey. Hey. So the other thing that we need to start talking about is Tlingit has these spots, right? There is a spot for certain things. I like to think of it as like I don't really gamble, but you know, like a slot machine, and it could spin, and you get like a cherry and a $sign and like a whatever the other thing is going to be, or maybe another cherry, I don't know. But basically it's saying like once it hits something, that spot is locked up. This X and this K sound are on the same wheel. You can only have one. So you can have yetk, a little child, and you can have yetk, but you can't have both of them, right? Or hitk and hitk. So if you're going to have little plural, you end up throwing this word sani at the end. Okay? But in order to do that, you get this right here. This vowel here is what we call a peg vowel. Peg vowels will pop up in Tlingit. Generally speaking, a consonant carries a lot more meaning than a vowel. That's not like a total across the board thing. But sometimes you could throw a vowel in there that says, you just got to get us to the next consonant. And there are cases that will do that, and this is one of them. So you'll say hitkisani, but that letter I just kind of gets you to the next sound, okay? So little houses, hitkisani,
Hitkisani.
hitkisani.
Kisani.
Kisani.
It should be pugs, because it seems like pugs, like there's always going to be like 10 of them, right? Hitkisani,
Kisani.
hitkisani,
Kisani.
sashkisani,
Kisani.
sashkisani,
Kisani.
kusani,
Kusani.
kusani,
Kusani.
hekisani,
Kisani.
hekisani.
Kisani.
So this would actually have like a single name in English. What do you think it would be? Pebbles, right? So there are certain things, like this one up here, ʼatudli.átk. That would also be a single word in English. What do you think it might be?
Snacks.
Snacks, right? Little foods. So cute. These are little cute. They're such cute little things. Another thing you might hear, kusani. It's right here. That's what this thing is. The little children of the land. Any questions?
Can you say one more time, why would it be plural, a noun be plural? You said only if it was necessary to indicate that there was a lot of those purposely? I mean.
Yeah, we're not counting them. I'm telling you that there's lots, right? Like there are mice in the basement, right? I need to pluralize this so you know we got a problem, right? Or like there's dogs out there. And so I need to tell you like there are, not, it doesn't necessarily mean more than we can count, but it's like I need to communicate that there are lots of them. That's usually when it does pluralize. There's rocks here. There's rocks in this road, right? So that's the thing, like you need to know there's going to be more than just this one. But not when you're counting.
So if why is it usani instead of ki?
You there, you there. Oh, dang. Yes, and that's the great question that gets us to start moving towards, let's say we're gonna do 3 things, maybe not.
So with the U and the U, so would that be the same if we had douche on here? It'd be douche kusani. It's only with U's. It's not with the.
Okay, sorry. It is the U and the K.
Because it matches.
I do remember
previous.
in Hasanech there was the long list of UK and U. All
Yes, we're on our way. We're on our way to that.
I see.
Okay. So before we start getting into how this relational suffix works, and you're gonna get like a set of rules. Remember, like Tlingit is like, I don't know, it's sort of like you put up a whale sculpture here, which is cool. But then St. Alaska Heritage Institute's like, I see your whale and I raise you 30 totem poles, right? And so Tlingit is a similar, not like we're trying to have a duel. Tlingit just seems like it's like, oh, you guys got 3 of those things? You got 3 rules for your possessive suffix? That's pretty cool. We got like 10, right? And so we're going to get to that. So another thing that I do want to talk about that we're going to start seeing a little bit more is a couple different ways to look at writing and sounds. And I'll explain exactly why we do this stuff, Nobody panic. It's totally fine. So here's another set of words. Let's just say them. Douche.
Douche.
Wait.
Wait.
Cheech.
Cheech.
Hit.
Hit.
Say.
Say.
Heat.
Heat.
Hoots.
Hoots.
Nothing new. These are all in beginning Tlingit. These are all things that we have practiced. But one thing we could do is sort of push them into their actual letters, right? A little bit of separation here. So here we're separating the vowels and the consonants, right? So we'd see three-letter word, three-letter word, three-letter word. These are all three-letter words, right? And I'm not talking about how many characters have we written, but this is counting the sounds, right? And this is important. Like you can learn how to spell in Tlingit very quickly. We have 61 sounds. Yes, that's a lot. But we also have, when people say, could you spell that phonetically? I say, I just did. We have a phonetic alphabet. I don't need to write D-U-C-K for like duck day, right? Or whatever the thing is going to be. Because then it's going to be thinking about this duck. Okay. So here's another set. Kate.
Kate.
Sheikh. Yesh. Saw.
Saw.
Anything that you don't know in there? Everybody know Sheikh? It has common names. You call it a red snapper, or yellow eye, or a red rockfish. If you're fishing for halibut, you might pull some of these guys up. They are yummy. But then their eyes kind of bulge. You ever pull one up from like the deep waters? Their eyes kind of, because the halibut can decompress as you pull it up, but these, they can't. So sometimes when you pull them up, they're dead already. They're kind of eyes bulging way out. And there's a place in Shkut, right? So there's a place called Shkut-ah. Shkut-ah, gwash. Nakide away ayishkaini. Shinach-ah, way do shah. Way shah, you do a sock. You do a sock. Sheikh. So the mountain, if you're looking up north, up the Chilkoot Lake, on the right-hand side, there's a mountain. It's called Sheikh. Little red snapper. So we can pull these apart, right? So we say 3-letter, 4-letter, 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 or sorry, 3, 3, 2, 1. This is good practice, right? Just to sort of analyze how the spelling works. It's getting into your analytical side of your brain. The other thing we can do is write whether it's a consonant or a vowel. When we do that, we will also be noting vowel length and tone. This is going to be important. This is going to come up in verb stems. Short and high, short and low, long and high, long and low. So we'll just write VV, V with the tone mark over it, right? And so we're just sort of noting that, and also the consonants that are there. When we get into a verb stem, usually it's going to have a single one, right? It's just another way we can look at that. And it's important to do this, and we're going to see why. Everybody okay? This is the set of rules for the relational suffix. And we're going to walk through what each of these different components mean. They all operate in concert with each other. They will tell you what that single letter will be. It might be 2 letters that go on there. And here's basically what it is. Okay? Number 1, you have to ask, is it open or closed? What does that mean?
Does it end with a vowel or a consonant?
Yes, vowel
Right.
ending open, consonant ending closed. Like, and a bunch of languages look at this stuff, right? Like in Hawaiian, you cannot have a closed word. It must end in a vowel. That's just how it goes. But Tlingit, we don't care. We're like, whatever, end it with whatever you want. And so, if it's closed, here's your starting point. I think, sort of like we said, in English. It's an S. Unless this, then it's a Z. Unless that, then it's an EZ. For Tlingit, the relational suffix is the letter I. There's your starting point. Throw an I on there. Unless it ends with a vowel. Then you can't have two vowels running into each other separated with the letter Y. So instead of I, you will have Y. Okay, so there's thing number 2. Thing number 3, the tone will always be the opposite of what's before it. E. Ne, shi. Right? Always opposite tone. You go from high to low, low to high. Thing number 3, if it has a rounded ending, it will be a U. So the first thing that makes a rounded ending is it ends with a W. That's the easiest. W, okay. W changes to a U, or we add a U at the end, depends. Right, so new, woo, right? Ach, na, woo, it's my rum, right? There are, and then this one at the bottom means any U vowel, U, high tone U, double O, high tone double O, and those are all U vowels. Any of the U vowels and any type of G, K, or X must have a rounded ending. Any U vowel and any, whether underline, pinch, we don't care. That's the G, the K, the X consonants. So we can see that they live in these families, right? That will automatically be a rounded ending. The last thing, right? Maybe number 4. Just like the S changes to a Z, so there's an unvoiced and voiced pair, Tlingit has 6 of them. A CH will become a J, ch, j, same sound, just turn on your vocal cords. K will become a G, underline K will become an underline G, a T will become a D, TL, DL, TS, DZ. We will see all of this in the following examples, one section at a time. Any questions?
Can you say the very last one on the bottom one more time? The U, O,
Any of the U vowels. So remember, we always think of vowels as a set. Oh, that's one of the U vowels, right? So you have the A vowels, the I vowels, the E vowels, the U vowels, right? And that means long, high, short, whatever. And any kind of G, K, X. That includes all the underlined ones, the ones with the adjectives. That will be a rounded ending.
So is the rule is that for possessives, it becomes that rounded ending and either an I or a U after that?
It's an I unless it's rounded, then it's a U.
Oh, yeah, that's right, sorry.
Yes.
It goes from voiced to, from goes from unvoiced to voiced.
All of these ones here, these ones must become their voiced pair. They have a voiced and unvoiced pair. But these are the only ones. But that means, and the only thing here is just saying it's too awkward to say ach, kate, eh. Like you just can't ach, kate, eh. Why turn the vocal cords off? Ach, kately. It's right there. It's right there. Right? But not all of the consonants are like this, right? But these ones are. We'll look at examples. Let's just practice these 6 pronouns first. Ach. Ach. Eh.
Ach,
Eh.
eh,
Du.
d,
Du.
d,
Ha.
Ah,
ah,
Ha.
ah,
ah,
Ye. Ye.
Ye.
Hastu.
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 So we'll just use for this. Everything can be yours. Right? We're going to go one section at a time, and I'll show you an example of a word that has this two things. So the first thing we're looking for is an open-ended word. We get saw.
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 Saw ye.
Ach. Saw ye.
Saw ye.
Ach. Ye.
There is a bit of a standardization thing here. What I mean is we will write this suffix short, but a lot of people might say it long. But in this case, long or short does not matter. You can say ye. You could say ye. It does not change. Okay? It can go either way, but we do write it short. Next thing we're looking for is a closed ending, right? And we went ye. Like, look at that. Low, high. It does everything that we expect it to do. Kies.
Peace.
Kies.
Peace.
Ach, kiesi.
Peace.
Peace.
Kiesi.
Ach. Kisi.
Now we're looking for a rounded, open ending. That means it's going to end with a vowel and a W. Here's one. Gow.
Gow.
Ach, gow.
Ach. Gow.
Ach, gow.
Ach. Gow.
It's everything we expect, right? We go from low to high. What about one that's closed and rounded? Gow. Gow. Ach, gahu.
Gahu.
Ach, gahu.
Ach. Gahu.
And what about one of these things, right? Where I don't see a rounded ending on there, but it must be, this is just rounded in Tlingit, okay? Hanuch.
Tanu.
Hanuch.
Tanu.
Also, it also can be kanuch with a K, whichever one, right? And if it's yours, ach tanuchu. Ach tanuchu.
Tanu.
Already learned one of these, right? When you learned ach dakanuchu, it's on there, right? You will see these all over the place now, right? What about these things? These voice things? No problem. Cheech.
Cheech. Cheech.
Ach, cheech.
Ach. Chije.
Ach, cheech.
Ach. Chije.
Kook.
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 We'll do two of those things, right? That U vowel and a K pushes it to, that's a rounded ending. That's just a rounded ending in Tlingit. W or not, that's just how it goes. And then we see the same thing going high to low, K to a G. Ach, kuku. Ach, kuku.
Ach. Kook.
From kook.
Kook. Kook.
You.
Yuk.
You.
Yuk.
English?
Cormorant.
Cormorant.
Really? I guessed. That's crazy.
We don't really have, I don't think they're in the, I don't think I've ever seen one up here. They got in Ketchikan.
Kurz nur Wooch.
Oh, okay. It's kind of like a north, they don't go too far. They also don't come to the land, and they also don't talk. Does anybody know why?
You trick them or something?
They offended someone?
Because
Comes back to Raven. So we will read this story. I don't think I'll do it with the elders because I'm not ready. I'm not ready. This is a hardcore story. Okay. We will get to it. But in short, Raven, well, I guess you'll see.
There's cormorants around here too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on the little islands that are out in front of like Lingi beach area. If you look out, there's some little islands kind of out there, and there's cormorants that sit around on those islands out there and out around different places. Sheesh.
And they run around, if you go further south, they run around with qanook a lot. What's qanook? Oh, we had to go, now we got bird day. Went from rodent day to bird day. Go like
Is it a petrol? Kind of a petrol?
petrol, yeah. Okay, I see a hand up.
Hey.
Oh, I was just going to say that wasn't Cormorant banned from land and his tongue was taken by Raven because Raven did some nefarious stuff and didn't want him to tell anybody.
That is correct. We will get to that story. Okay. Okay. You.
You.
You. Heat.
Heat.
Kidi.
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 Cake.
Cake.
Cake. Keitli.
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 Hoots.
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 Hootsy. Hootsy. Full disclaimer here. We gotta always show so much respect to this animal. We don't even say its name when we're in the woods. Maybe someday I'll find a different one that ends with TS. But you will see it though in like Hintug Hootsie. It's right there, right? It follows all those things. It all does what it's supposed to do. However, there are some exceptions. If things end with a short high vowel, they will get pushed long and low. You see a whole bunch of place names like Kowakan Teye. It does what it's supposed to do. It's just like, but I'm a short high vowel. What do? You go long and low. That's what you do. Okay? Right?
Go long.
There you go. Go long. Okay. And all of these words like chita, chasha, chita, dana, a bunch of these that end with that ah sound, especially those ones that have a verb root right at the front. Those ones will break these rules and say, everything's just short and low over here. That's just how we roll. So that's the ones you have to remember. So if you say like my knife, ach shitayi, which again, it kind of, as you sort of naturalize these rules by looking at these examples and predicting them, then you'll find these ones that break those rules and they sound a little unusual. So the last thing is these have an order. When you say ach yetki, the plural goes here, then the relational. ʼatudli, the small goes here, then the relational. That is the order. It must go in that order. For example, kisk. Kiske. Not changed to a different letter because there's no voiced version of this. It's impossible. Keet. And this already, this one doesn't need to have any suffix on there because it already has this, the construction is already there, so you don't have to add anything to it. Hukusani. Hukusani. Questions?
Wait, so did the relational thing come before the plural?
Comes after. Yetki. Yetki.
Could you show the Keat example again on that one?
This one?
Yeah.
So if we put those suffixes, if we have small or plural, all we have to do is throw the relational suffix on. Now this does not need to become a D because this is shielding it from that.
It's not you instead of I?
No, because it's not rounded. So you would have to have a W on there.
Oh, okay.
Here are some real life examples. Kusti. Hakusti does everything it's supposed to do, right? That's open, so it should be YI. It's high, but because it's a single high vowel, it gets pushed long and low, and now the suffix must be the opposite of what's before it. On, ani. There it is. Chetzin, chetzini. There it is, right? You'll see it all over the place. Now you can make anything in the world yours just by adding the suffix. Congratulations. I oyster ye aya. Shingatani.
I'm sorry, I missed the
Oyster.
become Kusti instead of Kusti.
It follows all the rules we expect. This ends with a short high vowel. Once you put a suffix on, it says, oops, I have to go long and low. So now this will be the opposite of whatever the final result of that vowel is. Hey, you should be nice and full in your brain now. When we walk through it, you will see, like, even though you sort of come back to this chart does show you all of the rules. There's another side that has the exceptions, right? And even though it looks like a lot, like there's a natural process to this. It's an I sound. But we can't have two vowels run together, so you're going to have to go y. And if it's rounded, it's going to have to go u. And we know it's rounded if it ends with a W or if it ends with any U vowel and any G, K, or X. There are a couple of hidden rounded endings. There's not a whole lot of them. But for example, let's say like my man is ach, ka, wu. So there's just maybe it was cow long time ago. I don't know. So there are a couple of those.
Could you show us the slide further along with te to te? I think it was the exceptions, maybe.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. That one.
I guess the last thing before we go, since Halloween's coming up, and I don't want to put any violent imagery into anybody's mind, but if a body part gets removed, it gains a suffix. So if you have dusha and you're watching some kind of incredibly violent show, I don't know what these people's culture is all about, like Game of Thrones, dusha as it bounces down the road or whatever on the right? But this is important. So like there is a bit of, sometimes there's not always alignment with how things work in Tlingit or how we talk about how things work. And one of those areas is with the body parts of animals. There are some speakers we work with who say every time you have an animal, you have to put this suffix on there for the body part. I don't think that that's necessarily the case.
You mean when it's removed, the body?
I think when it's removed, like, so whenever there's a house name, they're talking about like holding kit uchu. I am holding a killer whale's tooth. It's not, it has been removed. Doesn't mean it doesn't belong to it anymore. Like if something does happen and my thumb was over there, that's still my thumb. Like I'll be like, oh, my thumb, ach du shit. But it will follow this same set of rules. Okay. Yeah, that's enough.
Wait, so like jin is my hand, but then jini would be like my hand is cut off?
Yes.
Or like Star Wars.
Jin would be a rabbit's hand.
Oh, okay.
We say chus and jin for that, like a dog has a chus and a dog has a jin, back leg, front leg. But we would say kach jini if it's that people wear like a rabbit's foot sometimes. Oh,
Okay.
but yes, Luke Jinni, Dak was Geet. Or Dak was a Git. There it is.
Okay.
Luke Skywalker's hand fell down.
Cheese.
Finish cheese.
Tlein goodness cheese.
Cheese.
5 o'clock meeting. I'll send the link out to folks for an elder circle. It's optional. If you can't make it or don't want to make it or whatever, we'll be on our Zoom link starting around 6:30. What we'll do is we'll fly through this. We'll go through these set of rules, and then we'll start going through a bunch of examples, and you will become accurate predictors of this suffix.
You just said Wednesday, you meant Thursday, right?
I said Thursday. I meant Thursday.
Did you say 5 or 5:30?
I said 5.
Oh, so a little earlier than you.
Yes.
Okay, good to know.
The optional Elders Circle gathering. If you have anything you would like to share, it's a low pressure thing. It's just for them.
This Thursday or next Thursday?
This Thursday, 2 days from today. And then next week, that will be all on Zoom. Coming to the classroom is optional, but you'd have to have your own technology. Next week is also all on Zoom. I'll be traveling. We will still have class. Ish. Cha.
Cheese.
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 Oh, that's cheese.
Lesson E.
Cheese.
Kecha.
Getting after you like.